at Guantanamo Bay. Pennsylvania Congressman Joe Sestak is a member of the Armed Services Committee. He's also the highest-ranking military official ever to serve in Congress. So, Congressman, what's at stake for our troops here?
Well, if the authorization bill gets passed, it does help. Look, we've got a new way to acquire equipment that'll save $130 billion over the years if it's done. But all that said, if it doesn't pass, the world doesn't stop. Look at the foreign aid bill. We haven't had an authorization for that since 1962. But what results over time is that you are still going to appropriate the money because that's a different process. But you don't have the proper oversight. You don't have the new policies that eventually affect what we need to do. So we should get this through for good governance.
Well, as someone that's been a part of the military and is speaking to our military men and women, what kind of message do you think it sends them to kind of see a bill like this toiling in Congress?
Jenna, you bring up the best point of all. If there's any bill that we should get through and that you think would have bipartisan support, it would be a defense bill. I think at the end of the day that they're going to come to a compromise on this Gitmo issue, and you'll see it passed by unanimous support. I think you're going to see that they'll forbid funding to bring in detainees for about a year from Gitmo. But I need you to know, Jenna, that I'm a George Bush supporter on this issue. I watched him bring in 200 terrorists and try them in America, and actually make a speech one time and said all terrorists should be tried in the federal court system. I headed the Navy's anti-terrorism unit. I was on the ground in Afghanistan for a short mission. I walked out of the Pentagon on 9/11. 20 minutes later, that plane slammed into that building. People who had worked for me previously never came out. I want those criminals brought to justice, given the death penalty, and the fact that we're not going to do it for a year is outrageous. George Bush could do it. The laws haven't changed. It's what I defended 31 years in our military, and I think we should just get it done.
So let's be clear about this, because there's been several different changes to the language as it pertains to the Gitmo detainees. But as we understand it, as you say, it would prevent funding to bring any Gitmo detainees to the United States to try them in a criminal court. Is that correct as of today? Because it's been changing over the last several hours.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Initially, the president, before this, what you just said, earlier this morning, it was the president would have to notify and give 45 days heads up that he was going to bring someone in to be prosecuted. Now it's going to be complete refusal of any funding to do so for at least 1 year.
So, sir, we're going to have to wrap it up. I apologize, but you're for passing the Defense Authorization Bill. And you were going to vote yes on this bill, but you disagree with this part about how to treat the Gitmo detainees. Or do we have you right on that issue?
You have it right, but I'll eventually fight for the bill, because when you weigh the good versus the not so good, in my personal opinion, particularly with my personal involvement in this issue, I'll still support this bill because there's more good things in it. And that's the unfortunate part sometimes. But I wanted to make clear to everyone why I think, particularly as someone who's head of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit and been on the ground, that I want these criminals brought to justice immediately, because the Supreme Court has twice not let us do it in Gitmo. Let's get on to it. They deserve the death penalties, those who should get it, and we should move forward on it.
If we pass it, though, for another year, if we pass it on for another year, when do you think that's going to happen? We still have many detainees at Gitmo.
Jenna, you asked the question. You know, for publicity purposes, this sounds good, you know, out there. But when you really watch George Bush having been strong enough to bring in 200 terrorists and try them, you wonder why we're not doing it today. And so what you're doing, where I defended the rule of law, we're actually, 31 years in the military, we're actually bending the rule of law and letting people sit in limbo, because somehow all of a sudden, because the administration changed, we're no longer good enough in with America's laws to bring in the 201st terrorist to be tried under what this nation is founded upon. Not the rule of men, but the rule of law.
Congressman Sestak, we're looking forward to having you back again, sir. Thank you very much.
Great to be on with Jenna.